Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our In Real Time Episode 2, aptly named, The Universe is Calling, Unite and Break Free. The reason I'm calling it this is due to a lot of different examples of synchronicity. These synchronicities are steeped in animal energy. In this case, it's the spirit of horse energy. So I'm going to ask you guys to all do something for me. Picture a herd of horses running wild and free, racing powerfully, thundering across the plains, uninhibited, each flowing in their own strength, and yet even stronger as the herd. They're using their innate knowing, their intuition, and they're forging their path. They know where to go. They know how to get there. And they trust in themselves and in each other. Okay. With that now in mind, capture it like a photograph and then hold it there in your mind as the rest of this episode relies fully on you feeling that and the awareness that it invokes. Okay, so now that we've covered that one piece, I'm sure some of you may already guess where this is going to go today. For the rest, well, there may be a few surprises along the way. So welcome. I'm glad you're here. Now let's start with a bit of a recap, since it's been a hot minute since my last entry. In all honesty, it's been about 4 months. That's right, 4. Did I plan it that way? No. But that's the way I was guided. And that's how things just unfurled over time. I actually had this episode fully recorded. And then things started to, happen. The software got buggy. The IT techs couldn't really fix it. We tried multiple ways to do the overlays. Nothing was happening. Things were feeling like I was pushing uphill. I was battling against this sort of blockage. And it was happening until I could just step back and see it for what it was. Many of you listening are going to understand where I'm going with this. But when these things happen and you're like battling and you feels like you're going through the treacle or the sludge to get somewhere, it's a very clear sign to stop and wait. Perhaps even revise what you're doing or just scrap the whole thing together. I wasn't really sure at the time, and this is back in May, but now it's September 1st. And as the saying goes, hindsight's 2020. We're going to cover this off in 3 stages. First, I'm going to walk you through the stuff that's been happening to me, what happened basically in late April and early May. And then we're going to cover off an event that happened. Imagine that in air quotes. Then we're going to fill in the gaps from the beginning of that event to now, walking through my own intuitive hits, the guidance, the downloads, the history, and the insights. And then you should understand the unfolding of this. So we go back to mid-May 2024. Things were starting to get interesting. I was seeing what I call horse energy everywhere. And when I say everywhere, I mean just that. By example, I've never before noticed so many clouds in the sky that looked like horses, outlines of horses, heads of horses, full body. It was crazy. I'll normally see like seahorses, dragons, angels, frogs, whales, dolphins, harts, rabbits. Oh my gosh, so many things, right? But a horse? No, that was a new one. I found it interesting because, you're gazing up at the clouds and at first it takes you by surprise. You're like, what is that? Am I really seeing this? And especially when it's a clear outline in a shape that you don't normally see. For me, that was when it appeared as like the head of a horse, like just from sort of that lower chest up to the top. I have never seen something like that so clearly in the sky. Did I take pictures? Yeah. I'll probably share them later. So I paid attention. Why? Well, just the week after I'd been seeing this in the sky, I was part of this meditation group, and horse energy was coming up a lot. Members of the group were dreaming or thinking of them in meditation or seeing them, or things were just happening in real time. So when this happened, I made a mental note of it. Now, this is where things start to get fun. So I'd been mulling all of this over, and then it hit me. This memory from almost a month prior in April. And now this is where things get funky. Okay, so let's go to sort of a disclaimer. First and foremost, I'm not someone that watches the news, like, at all. I've been trying to get my parents to reduce their intake too over the years. And I'm happy to report they watch way less of it, way more discerning. Woohoo! So why this decision? Well, it's mostly due to what I call the low frequency of the material that's generated in sort of the news atmosphere. All of those networks it's really low vibe. And I just don't need it in my life. It's hard enough to transmute the energy that comes up for myself and the collective without adding more layers of gunk that need to be, dissolved, transformed, transmuted. I believe that if I'm meant to know something, it'll pop up, and it does. On the radio when I'm driving, sometimes a feed on the Google page, or the more natural way to go when you're with a group of people and they're just chatting about the latest and greatest, you hear about it, right? The same goes for most TV or network feeds. I also note, however, there are some really beautiful shows and movies out there, everyone. This isn't a one thing fits all. There are still beautiful creations that are orchestrated with the highest of intention and frequency and vibration. So, for me, I mostly stick to creators on YouTube that I trust, that I've already kind of gone through the motions with, and I know through discernment, I feel their high vibes, I know where it leads, and that's honestly why I'm quite happy to still be creating on this channel. Bottom line, you use your discernment. You find the vibe, the feeling, the frequency of what makes you truly feel joy, happiness, and lighter for having watched it. So this doesn't come from the brain per se, where you're kind of convincing yourself, oh, that was a good episode, right? Yeah. No. This is where you're feeling or watching something and you just know by the end you're transformed in the most beautiful way. And the rest, honestly, just leave it behind. You don't need it. So let's come back now. Traipsing back a little farther to about April 24th of this year. I saw this particular video / news caption because it came through on YouTube. Now, this is not part of my normal sub list. I opened up my sub list and there it was, though. Not normal for me, but, hard to ignore. So I clicked on it. I wanted to see. I'm like, you know what? If this is showing up in my sub list some way, somehow, I meant to see this today. The universe wants me to know. So that's exactly what I did. And that is what this whole episode is about. The video I speak of, and you're going to become aware of it, it does come with its own warning. If you decide to seek it out after listening to this episode, please note there are some scenes and photos that may be disturbing or triggering. especially so if you love animals like I do. That said, let's just soften the caveat and just say, don't worry. To the best of my understanding of what was published and what was videoed and seen, the animals involved received the very best medical treatment and care and rehabilitation and were in a horse sanctuary for recovery. I do believe they are okay. I leave you to your own research and discernment otherwise. I will post the photos here as we go through this video, but first, the story. So it's April 24th, I believe in our time too, and I'm saying it that way because it happened across the pond in London, and we're out here in British Columbia. So this happened just outside of Buckingham Palace. It's a pretty normal ceremony, rehearsal, or something that they had planned that day by their Royal Military Horse Cavalry. This is true, straight up military cavalry. On that day, they happened to just be going by the Buckingham Palace, where the royal family lives. And something happened that spooked the horses. And by that, I mean spooked them so much that a handful of them literally tried to break free of their formation and their riders. We're talking throwing the riders off, running around, breaking through the reins. Of the 5 that tried, 4 did break free and started galloping through the streets of London. And of those 4, there are 2 that really hit the newsfeed. And these are the pictures that I will show you now. This first photo I found quite interesting. Just looking at it, just looking at the contrast, the black and the white. It's this beautiful setup of opposites, right? It's that beautiful theme of, well, it's something that's been so deeply rooted within me this past year. The first thing I thought of, in all honesty, was, oh, wow, there is art depicting life, depicting art. It's just like in the Tarot. For those of you familiar with it, you'll see this as the Chariot card. So usually in this card, for those of you that don't know, there's a charioteer in the chariot standing up, steering 2 horses, both on reins, one to the left, one to the right in front of him. One horse is black, one horse is white. So he's basically charging off in a unified direction, keeping these horses in check, in reins, and going for it. The underlying thematic, of course, of this card is being that you can pull 2 disparate ideas together, 2 energies together, 2 separate thoughts or projects, and just keep it all marching forward in a really productive way in the same direction. You will get there. Okay. So as soon as I saw that, that's what I thought of. That's this sort of theme that I've been coming up with lately. So what came to mind was how it also speaks to the divine masculine, the dark horse, and the divine feminine, the white. Yep, you could look at that as just very, okay, that's an archaic thing, but that's how I saw it. I just kind of split that line immediately and saw the dark horse leading the way, the divine masculine, the divine feminine charging from behind in white. The purity, the sanctity. And that's when I saw this. Okay, so here comes the warning again, folks. We're going to talk about it now. So feel free to pause or skip ahead if this is not something for you, okay? Thank you. So you're going to see the blood, the red. The red, or at least what appeared to be blood. You know, even as it was happening, I'm thinking, well, don't think it's blood yet. You're just not sure. Best case scenario, the white horse knocked over a can of red paint on their way, you know? That's how I think. So all down the front side, the white side of the horse to the side of its chest was blood. Now, it didn't look hurt, but there was blood coming from somewhere. And it was shocking. Imagine this beautiful, pristine white horse with bright red blood running down its chest. It was a shock moment, and very apparent that now these two horses are racing at full tilt. So as I watched, the way my mind perceived it was that the black horse was clearing the path, just as the divine masculine would clear the path for the divine feminine. The divine masculine is basically the energies that they hold and create a sacred container. It's like if you can imagine a ring of divine masculine creating this sacred space, protecting it, holding the circle, so that the divine feminine can be within it, creating and doing and bringing to fruition all she needs to do, the love, the light, the earth, you know? That's your sacred container. So the divine feminine, pristine, pure, white as snow, covered in blood, sweat, and tears that she's been put through all this time. And by that, I mean all this time on this planet. Bursting through this energetic barrier as the divine masculine finally steps into his purpose and leads the way down that sacred path, the protected way forward, leading, protecting. It was the imagery of pure, unbridled passion. Passion, passion, passion. That beautiful, majestic energy, the power of the horse. That's how I saw it. That's how I perceived it. And I wanted them to make it. Like, I'm watching being like, go, like, break free. And they're racing down the streets together. And it was so beautiful. It was so synchronistic. They flow together in one direction, then another. And they're just thundering across the cobblestone, united in the same direction. And the best part, unlike the tarot card, in this case, no reins required. They didn't need to be controlled. They knew exactly where they were going to go and how they were going to get there. They were free. And they were taking care of each other. And they were taking care of each other to get where they needed to go. It was such a beautiful thing to watch. They were trusting. They trusted in each other. They knew their purpose. They were in the flow. It was magical. It really was. And it literally stopped everyone in every vehicle in their tracks. People watched from the sidelines. They were gobsmacked. So eventually, yes, these horses were brought to a stop. They were corralled in. They were calmed down. They were taken in for medical care and then to a horse sanctuary for recovery. And honestly, that's all I know at this point as for that piece. But where is this all leading? Well, you know about the clouds and you know about this now. So, keeping in mind this all happened within a couple weeks of each other. It's time now to talk about the bigger picture here and how this could have even happened, and more so, why. So first up, we need to create a little bit of awareness around this event of these horses breaking free. For some hearing this, they'd be like, oh, what's the big deal, right? Some horses, something happened, they ran for it, kind of normal, right? No. This is a Royal Guard Horse Cavalry unit. These are military horses, and they are trained ad nauseum for explosions, gunfire, rockets. They're put through the paces with artillery and guns going off and things that mimic war, for Pete's sake. And what does the news report? Well, they tried to, smoke and mirror it. So they tell us that the reason this happened is some concrete fell nearby as the horses passed by a construction site near the palace. Falling concrete. Okay, so let's go with that. to be fair, a horse can be spooked. Absolutely. Honestly, it could be the smallest thing. It can be a piece of string in the grass that looks like a snake, and that horse is going to see it and bolt. But in this case, again, Royal Guard Horse Cavalry unit, trained with each other. 5 that trained for decades, folks, not a year or two. I mean, decades, not to spook, not to even flinch. And they want us to believe that all 5 somehow just got spooked by some falling concrete? I don't think so. No. 4 actually got loose. So of the 5, 4 broke free. 1 was easily just reined in. The question now is what truly spooked them. And I'm not sure we, as a collective, are ever going to get a straight answer on that. It didn't take long for what I call the subversive culture discussions to happen. So, it's like, oh, how did this all happen in front of Buckingham Palace? What does it mean? Is this reflecting the royal family? Are they finally breaking free? Is it metaphorical? Is the king finally going to break free of all the Illuminati and the royal wealth across the world that governs everything we do? Blah, blah, blah. The one common thread or feeling that was woven through all of this was it seemed to be a union of opposites for freedom and a coming together. So whether you believed this reflected the royal family, the people, the public, the world in general, or from that more underlying spiritual idea of it's time to get going, there was a true thread of this is about breaking free, uniting together, coming together for freedom. Okay. Keeping in mind, of course, the war with the Ukraine is still going pretty strong at this point. So even as forces may look in contrast and may sometimes pull in opposite directions, even in your own life, I'm sure you can think of something that's happened like that before, you can rein them in. You can channel it in the same direction, right? So that's the nature of the card in the oracle and the tarot that I spoke of. It's about progress. You can pull these things together with determination, with action, with your own self-will, right? You can pull these things together. It's determination. And then when they truly operate as one, that's the self-will piece, the desire for this all to pull together. And it kicks into high gear. It kicks into action. Say, if you're planning an event or something, like a wedding, and you've got all these things going on all at once, and, the caterer is asking you for this, and you're dealing with the studio guy over here, and blah, blah, blah. And through sheer will and desire, you pull it all together into this beautiful event that just magically unfolds and flows. So here's the interesting part. What was evident from the video, from the photos, from what happened here, there is no need for those reins, for those measures of imposed control. These horses were embracing their full autonomy. They were in full control of where they were going, what they were going to do next. Through their own self-imposed willpower, they exercised it to the fullest of their domain. They decided where they were going to go and no one else. They didn't need to control each other either. They just knew. And that is the message that I received. The download, the angel whisper, whatever you want to call it. The message that I received was this: face the wind. Be fierce and wild and free. Reclaim your personal power. Trust in each other. Break free. We mirror our emotions to each other. So when we trust in each other that we can do this, that is what we see in the other. It is time, folks. It's time to free the reins of control that have been imposed on all of us for way too long. And part of this is understanding the energy that's at play right here, right now on this planet. Please understand that we all have a choice. You always get to choose how to respond. Always. Even when you think that you don't, even when you're in the direst of times and you're like, oh my God, how am I ever going to get out of this? It is awful. It is this, it is that. You know what? Even in that moment of consideration, that is your choice, to sit and let it move through you and let it be. Give yourself time to consider how to move forward. That is a choice, rather than just be moved by it and sort of knee-jerk responding or letting others move you for you. The universe is shouting, break free of the shackles. Break free. It takes teamwork. It takes unity, a united front. It takes trust. The most important foundational piece of trust, that you can do it, that we can do it, and that we can trust in each other to do the right thing here. It takes personal power and an intense desire to be wild and free, to not need this heavy-handed oversight, to not need those in quote-unquote power making decisions that don't benefit any of us, never mind our community. This is how it's supposed to be, not controlled by money or some sense of existence that lives but does not breathe in a digital world. We can see it acting out through war, in the workplace, in our families sometimes. We can see it at school. Many places that people try to control us, try to control you. You'll know where it plays out in your own life. There are many ways that people try to control others. And there are many ways where we give up our power, sometimes, in all honesty, not even meaning to. You just kind of hand it over, You maybe had a rough day, and you don't want to make any more decisions today. Not one more decision. You've had it, right? So you're like, honey, just whatever you want to do, we'll do it. Thanks very much. Because it's easy. And sometimes, in all honesty, it is needed. You have to use your discernment about when and how you give your power away, when it's required, and then how to reclaim it back. That's when we have to remind ourselves. When we get our energy back and we've rested and we've recharged, now you take that moment and you claim your power back. You claim that energy back to yourself, purified, sanctified, and free. You see it as energy in its purest white light coming back to you, or golden, or whatever appeals to you. Maybe it's rainbow light. Picture it as this beautiful bubble, this stream of light coming back to you. It comes back pure and pristine and vibrant, and it wraps around you in this sort of bubble of love. And now you get to say, okay, now whatever power that you have claimed from another, that you've perhaps taken, now you send that back to those other people, to that other person, with love. Wrap it in a bubble of this pure light and just send it back. Imagine it like a bubble traveling back to whoever these people may be. And you don't even have to know it. Just set the intention that any power you may have taken or received from others, you now send back to them with love. As you are restored to your fullness of self and soul in your own true power, purified, sanctified, vibrant, standing tall, standing strong, standing free. Okay, here comes the third piece of this conversation. This is the final part that really nailed it for me. Okay, a few weeks after the Buckingham event took place, We're still in May, but we're almost at the end of May. I was out for a beautiful afternoon at this local bird sanctuary. It's a park. Beautiful place. Tons of acres. Really nice. My thought at the time was just to spend a couple of hours. Be back in time for this group session that was going to happen that night. I was taking photos. I was in nature. I'm trying out some new trails. It was awesome. It was so lovely. Beautiful sunny day. Beautiful pristine blue sky. Just a little bit of a breeze. Like you couldn't get any better for a gorgeous summer day. So as it turned out, I was going along. I spent all afternoon there. I think I walked somewhere between like 11 to 12 kilometers that day. It was quite the trek. And it wasn't a trek that I planned on. There's this beautiful long and winding river, and it kind of rushes, and then it gets all calm where this like river rock builds up, and you get these sort of banks. People can go out and walk out in the middle of it and just do some fly fishing. You can actually traverse the river in some spots. It's totally safe. But at the time, it was just getting into the season where the salmon were spawning. It was such a cool place to be, and I think that's why I took my time even more, just really watching and going with the flow of the river and taking time to kind of go to these spots that overlooked where you could get a better vantage point and see what was going on down there. At one point, it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm looking at my phone. I'm thinking, okay, I've gone a lot longer than I thought. And I was in the forest. I was on the trails. It was so beautiful. But I wasn't sure exactly where I was on the trail. I had a little bit of a map from like the interpretive center, but I knew I'd gone pretty far, but I wasn't done on this trail yet. I'm like, okay, I kind of know how far back to the car. It's crunch time, right? It's like, do I keep going or do I turn around now and make my way back to the car? There were still people coming from the opposite direction along the trail towards me, so I knew there would be something up ahead eventually. I just didn't know how far. How far and how long was still in question. So I kind of figured if I kept going, I might not make it back in time for group sesh. So decision time, right? Well, I thought, I was looking around and I threw caution to the wind. It was such a great day. It was so beautiful. I just wanted to keep going. Even if I didn't know what was going to happen or where I was going or what to do. Even if I didn't wear the right footwear for this. But I felt the key was to keep plodding on. Just to enjoy it, enjoy the moment, be fully present, and not worry about a thing. I walked about another kilometer or 2 down this trail, again, winding through the forest. And then it kind of just opened up to the left of me towards the river. And I could hear the water. So I was betting that I could get down to the river from where I was. I kind of went off the side and saw this little path and I went down. And then all of a sudden it wasn't really far. And then the whole thing just opened right up. And there I was, boom, on the side of the river. And it was so beautiful. This pebbly like river rock and a sandbar combination. And I just walked right out into the middle of it and stood there looking both ways. No one in sight, just birds, herons, all of that. Now, walking out into the middle of the river, there was really barely any water where I was heading to. It was just sort of trickling through here and there. It was probably 100 to 200 feet down the way where the water would pick up again. So perfectly safe. I'm out there in the middle. I'm taking photos and now I'm taking videos. But then I heard people's voices and they were coming down the trail. They're in the forest, but I could hear them. I was picking up on it. And I was thinking, oh, okay. I'm guessing that these people, I'm going to be joined by people soon. They're going to come down the path. They're going to come down here. So I was trying to wrap up this video. And then all of a sudden, I hear this kind of big sound to my left, and I'm turning back to the trail, to the bush that, sort of opens up to the water. And this is what I saw. Sharing it with you now. Isn't that cool? Okay, so there is the horse energy of the day. I just wasn't expecting it, and they were so beautiful. And it might be hard to tell in this video, but one of them had blue eyes. You don't normally see horses with blue eyes. They're kind of rare. So it was just this beautiful moment, and I was so happy, and I felt kind of bad because I was videotaping them, but I'm like, hey, they're on the trails, they're walking it, they got to know they're going to have pictures taken of them, we'll leave that behind. So now, as you can see, horses obviously come on the trails, but no other pets are allowed. Just because the birds are nesting, the herons, it is a bird sanctuary for herons, so we try to keep it as quiet as possible. So no loose pets, no loud motorized bikes or vehicles or anything. You just walk the trails. So the trails go for kilometers. They honestly probably go for miles and miles. They go up and down both sides of the river, and then they cross into another section. It is the perfect place for a horse outing or a trail ride. When I went back onto the trail, and it was only maybe 5 minutes later that I heard them coming from behind again. And it was really cool. I got to see them again and take pictures and interact. It was kind of fun. So I love horses. I love their energy. It's so beautiful. It's stoic. It's wise. It's calm. It is all-knowing. They are so intuitive. That's such a good reason as to why there is equine therapy out there. So for anyone that's wondering, yes, equine therapy is horse therapy. It is working and being with horses because their energy can help people that are going through trauma so well. I always recommend for people, if you are ready for equine therapy, if it's calling to you, please find a beautiful association or a group in your area that offers it. There is something so amazing about horse energy and the healing that they offer through their presence, their energy, their spirit. It's like none other. You will be transformed because of it. Okay, so back to what we're talking about. I eventually made it back to the trailhead and all the way back around the full 11 kilometers to the interpretive center. I'm like, I so missed that group session. Like, it was on and gone. But I knew there'd be a recording, a replay, so I just set the intention to catch it later that evening. Now it's later that evening. I'm back home. It's been a few hours, and I'm now listening to this recording of the session I missed with this group. Lots of people. I think they had maybe 40 people that day, something like that. And it was really good energy, lots of talking, lots of bubbly chatter. All of a sudden, they're talking about horse energy. People that were going through horse energy sessions, people that were seeing horses in their dreams, people that horses were coming up in their meditations. And then for others, they owned farms, so there were stories that were showing up for them in their lives. And I'm sitting there and I'm just listening to this and I'm like, you have got to be joking. So I'm piecing it together because this discussion happened pretty early on in this replay. And so I go back and I'm comparing the timing now of the video when they were doing this live and where was I at that moment in the park. At the exact moment that this group was meeting and talking about this horse energy, that is when I was doing my video down at the riverbank when the horses dropped in. So yeah, for me, that was, what do you call it? A drop the mic moment? Oh yeah. And I was overjoyed. I was like, that is the radiance of spirit working throughout. That is the universe and synchronicity coming together in the most amazing ways. This was happening to me in real life. It was happening to me in real life. And I was blown away. I took the time to write the intuitive leader of this group to let her know what had happened. It was such a cool synchronicity. I just wanted to share it with the group. I wanted to let them know what was happening while they were talking about this, what was happening in real life to me at that moment. When these things happen, it truly is so magical. It's so important to share and witness with each other. These are the things that can be very validating and important to a person, to each of us. it kind of migrates, right? So it twists and turns as we go through ascension and spiritual awakening. And as we do so, and we hear about these things, all of a sudden it can be like an aha moment for another person. They can hear what happened to you or what you were thinking, or maybe what happened in your meditation yourself, and they can align it to them. They can hear the knowledge, the wisdom. They can hear what we call the resonance in what you're telling to someone and how it reflects within them. And there's healing in that. This is also why I do this podcast. I'm very clear on the understanding of how important it is to share our stories, to share what we're going through so that all of us can tap in and really hear what's happening out there to other people. See where it might be in alignment, or having heard about something, how does it feel to you? There is healing in this. There is a literal transfer of healing energy that happens when you're a part of this, when you hear about these synchronicities, when you witness it, imagine it, and sort of integrate it into you. It all plays a part. We tend to mirror each other. We call it witnessing, basically, but it's what happens when we share these things. We kind of go outside of space and time for a moment, and we're together energetically, sharing in it. No matter if I recorded this a year ago, 10 years ago, you're hearing it now. You're here with me now in this moment, and we're sharing it now. It's as real now for you as it was for when I recorded it. And that is the beauty of the quantum energy. That's what we mean by working in the quantum energy field. You're outside of that space-time continuum. It does not control you. The beauty of the field of the quantum is it connects us together all the time. So when synchronicities happen, when these things happen, they may seem a little disparate, a little separate, a little not connected. But when you pull it all together and you look at it kind of like a puzzle, all of a sudden, there is your aha moment. Birds of a feather, as they say. So thank you for sticking through this and listening to this review of a short snippet of time in my life and in the collective. How it all seems to pull together in this common thread, well, what I believe is truly the universe calling us to unite and stand in our power. Trust. Trust in yourself to know what to do best. Trust in each other and your family and your friends and your soul family around you. Break free of the control. Break free of the power that tries to bind us, to bind you. Break free of the historic ways that we've been taught and led by God knows who to believe what may or may not be good for us. Use your own judgment. Use your own tuition. Be willing to relearn history. When something happens, really take a moment to look at it and understand it. Take a step back. Be the observer in your own life. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be a small thing. But when you sit there and say, oh, something feels different here, just take a step back. Look at it for what it is. Witness it, absorb that information, integrate it, and let it move through you. And by doing so, it goes beyond. It gets transmuted and it gets transformed. And that is when the healing happens. Get yourself out of the situation in order to look at it as neutrally as possible to understand what's going on. That is how we free ourselves. We take our control back. We use our discernment. And that is how we stand in our power. And we do it together. Thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed it. And I look forward to sharing much more with you again. See you on the inside.